So, Jóhanna Audunsdóttir, good to have you with us. You are the Director of the Climate and Sustainability at Landsvirkjun, the national power company of Iceland. In the 1970s and the 80s, Iceland made a historic decision to abandon oil heating in favor of geothermal energy. Today, 100% of your electricity is generated from renewable sources. What can other countries learn from Iceland's journey away from fossil energy?
I think we can showcase that it's possible to have an isolated, fully renewable grid. When we look at the electricity generation being fully renewable, this is something that maybe for us Icelanders now feels like it's just like the normality. Everything goes smoothly and it's just normal to us. But it wasn't back in the days when we were transforming from other sources of energy, or actually little electricity, and to these sources that we are utilizing. The same applies to the geothermal that is now used for 19% of the heating in Iceland. Back in the days in 1970, there were actually some constraints about using geothermal for heating. So even that decision, which today makes complete sense to use our own geothermal energy to heat up our houses, was controversial, but I don't think anybody would admit that today to have been against that change. So I think in the past we've done bold choices, difficult choices that really paid off, and it really shows that electricity and renewable electricity can pay off both environmentally but also for the economy and the society. Iceland's development from a poor country and into what we are today is really highly linked to the development of clean energy in Iceland. But still, we have a task ahead of us and tasks remaining. And as Director of Sustainability at Landsvirkjun, the national power company of Iceland, it's a great privilege to work with a company that is really looking forward to take part in the electrification in Iceland that remains, in the shipping industry, in the fisheries, the tourism sector, and so on and so on. To take part in continued green growth in Iceland, but also being here and experiencing what's going on, having discussions on what's going on the global level, more in a broader sense, is really inspiring, and I hope to be able to bring some of it home, because we also, like others, need inspiration. But I'm hoping that we can bring some by proving that it's possible to run a completely renewable grid. I think what we have all seen is that renewables are possible and they just make sense. They are becoming more cheap. I mean, solar and batteries, we don't use that much in Iceland, but it's becoming cheaper than fossil fuels. So the technology is here, even with other renewables like geothermal, hydro, wind. But the systems are also a huge part of it. We are heavily reliant on fossil fuel systems globally, and they are really it's a matter of both what's technically possible, and I think we have that already, but then it's what systematically is possible, and that's a completely different thing. And I think that's been discussed here today all around us, how systematic changes need to happen for renewables to provide fruitful. And then we come into both regulatory frameworks and policy to make sure that businesses have a clear foresight and can plan ahead, have some predictability in climate action and to invest in climate action. But also, when we look at the investment policies and the role, everybody has a different role in climate action. And the role of the investment, financing and so on is, of course, to bring some platforms and frameworks to place so you can actually benefit from investing in green growth and just growth. And that's combination of corporations, finance and policies. We have actually been highly rewarded by the EU taxonomy. All our operations are fully aligned, eligible to the EU taxonomy and also aligned. And we published a green bond framework earlier this year, and in which all of our constructions of new power plants are not only going to be eligible but aligned. What does that mean? It means that all our power plants that we have already and that we are constructing now and in the future will be a mitigation measure to climate change, but also we aim to not cause any significant harm, that's the legal definition there, to any of the other environmental objectives. Because it needs to be holistic, and I think it's also really important to kind of grasp the renewables, and being here in Brazil as well, that renewables don't always mean sustainable. You have to make sure that you are respecting nature and community and doing things with both respectfulness and in a responsible manner. And that's kind of what we hope to bring at home, and that's really helping by strong investment policies, but just with foresight as well, that governments stay the route towards net zero and what we all need to do. That's a very good and relevant question. We need to ramp up renewables. In Dubai was at tripling renewables, but also doubling down on efficiency, or doubling the efficiency efforts to bring electricity need, to keep it as modest as possible. Because we need to phase out fossil fuels, we need to replace fossil fuels with renewables, but then again there is also increased energy needs. And this is both data centers, like new economies or new business opportunities, technological innovation that bring kind of more energy need, but also just transition. As a globe, we need to transition away from fossil fuels. So I think we both have to ramp up renewables, but we have to make sure that we are phasing out fossil fuels at the same time. So that makes the challenge that we need to both replace the current fossil fuel, and we need to find ways to make electricity or generate electricity to provide with new business opportunities and also electrification of new areas, for example, or like broader societies. And what this has in common is the need for efficiency. The usage of electricity needs to become more efficient, and the generation of electricity needs to become more efficient. And this applies to renewables as well. We have to look into, on the usage side, I mean, most of the technologies that are going to bring us or can bring us, keep us at 1.5 degrees, they're already here. But we need to find ways to make them more efficient, so we can can provide the energy that's needed to do the jobs that we need the energy to do. It's about that. So how can we do that in an efficient manner? And what we are looking at Landsvirkjun, for example, is the efficiency of the resource use. How can we make the most electricity, that's our production, out of the least environmental impact or least impact on land? And that means efficient use of resources. And right now we're actually expanding one of our hydropower plants that's already existing, already in place, to make sure that we can generate more electricity and have more capacity in that power plant. We're also doing this in geothermal, actually, using the excess pressure in our current operations to generate even more power, expanding our power operations where possible, where the resource can provide this without increasing our footprint inland. And so this has to be done in combination with new energy generation. And when we go forward, we're even looking into things like deep drilling for geothermal. We already have one deep and super hot geothermal well. It was a trial project, and we have now a cooperative project with the Ministry in Iceland of Energy, Climate and Environment and the other geothermal energy providers in Iceland to see if we can use the geothermal resource in a more efficient way, getting more heat out of the ground and more energy potential with the same footprint. But that also brings challenges in regards to environment that we have to, of course, make sure that we do in a respectful manner and in a manner that is based on science and based on knowledge of the resource that we're using and the impact that it might be causing. I didn't really know what to expect from this COP particular. So a lot of chaos going into it in many ways in the geopolitical landscape and so on. But what I the feeling once you're here is both of the it's a bit frightening. The existential threat of climate change is more it's more on the table here than in the previous COP in which I have attended to. It's more relevant, it's more visible, and I think people are really. I hope that is inspiring people to action and for implementation. It's a COP of tipping points in many ways for me. Tipping points from fossil fuels to renewable, yes, but we also see the tipping points, of just in the environment becoming closer and closer. For Iceland, this is highly relevant with recent news on the potential collapse of the Amok system. This is really, really relevant for us, as for everybody in this room, everybody from all around the globe. So I think it's most frightening, but hopefully that will inspire some action. And that's what I'm seeing in that as well. Actions, implementation, and maybe more. I'm a bit more hopeful actually after having spent 4 or 5 days here than in the beginning, seeing what others are doing. So I hope we can move forward into implementation through this COP. Out of 16 tipping points to the Earth system in which we are at alarming rates getting nearer and nearer with our climate impact, 6 of those are located in the Arctic region, North Arctic region, close to Iceland. One of them is the potential collapse of the Amok system. We usually refer to this as Golfströmurinn or the Gulf Stream in English. That's part of that system. This could have devastating impact in Iceland, as other tipping points will around the globe. So it's really important to take action on this. It's highly unlikely that the Amok system will collapse, but there is this potential of it. And the further we move away, the further we continue to emit and continue to depend on fossil fuels, the more the likelihood becomes real. So you're just reminded of the threats all around us here, and I really hope that it brings action and implementation of action. Next on the radar is definitely continuing to be a key player in Iceland's remaining energy transition. We want to take part in making sure that Iceland complies to their commitments on climate action, bringing green growth in Iceland, continued green growth in Iceland with increased energy generation. But we want to do it well. We want to do it in a way that's respectful for the environment and our local communities and the Icelandic society as a whole, and also to climate. And since we are here, we have been really at the forefront in adopting best practice measures and even developing some best practice measures as well when it comes to climate management. For example, we are now constructing new power plants. We're actually expanding our generation by 8%, I think, at this moment with current constructions. And we are using carbon prices in the contractor's agreement there, which means that we are able to draw down the carbon emissions from these structures without increased cost. And for example, now we're building a wind farm, Vaðölduver, in Iceland, and we are using carbon prices on fossil fuels, for example. And now the machinery is using electricity and hydrogenated biofuels. So this really paves the way, and we're doing the same in a hydropower construction that we have ongoing, using the carbon prices, making sure that we minimize the carbon footprint as we can. Also looking at this in the development and the design of the power plant to make sure that we can prevent the most emission in our value chain when it comes to constructions. When it comes to our operations, we do the same, but fully utilizing renewables, it's a bit different. So our Scope 3 during construction is the highest part of our emissions. So definitely to continue generating energy, doing it in an efficient manner and in a respectful manner, and hopefully leading the way and proving that some tools like carbon prices do work in an efficient manner and in an economically beneficial manner also. It's just good business.